Hello, and welcome to Here's the Thing with Robbie and Jose, where we explore relationships through a male and female perspective. With me, as always, is the lovely Robbie.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. You just have the most lovely smile. Every time I look at you, just from ear to ear, man. You
This
can't
is
take
fun.
it off.
I enjoy when we record.
It's super fun.
It
Yeah,
is
but
super fun.
I wish you could see your face every time, every single time. It's just always just ear to ear, man. Just those pearly whites are coming out. But yes.
Yeah. So Jose and I have had this conversation a couple of times in the past about something that we feel sets the tone for the relationship or could potentially set the tone. And that is first date conversations.
Yes.
That's
First date
including the do's and the don'ts and the
Yes.
what
Yes.
it's like.
Yes.
It's never the same. That's
And I think even it depends on what age you are, the conversations are going to be different.
yeah.
Like, we're doing this special with the Love is Blind, and you can see the conversations of 20-year-olds
Yeah.
and 30-year-olds versus 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds.
What do 50-year-olds talk about?
Well, they're looking for other things. Usually they're trying to find out if you still have any kids that living at home. Let's say you had kids late. So that's one topic that comes up quite often. It's like, okay, your kids, usually in most cases, if they're in their 40s, chances are they have grown kids. Although it was funny, the other day I was looking through one of the profiles on the dating sites, and she said something along the lines of, all my kids are grown, except for my 6-year-old son. I was like, so not all your kids are grown. But she kind of snuck it in there,
Yeah.
like, all my kids are grown, so you don't have to worry about that. And then, except for my 6-year-old son. And I was just like, oh my gosh.
trying to hook you in.
So, I mean, but again, if you know you have a 6-year-old, you might as well, especially on profile sites, you might as well just put that out there because that could be an issue.
Yeah, but would you say that certain fundamental things are going to be the same for every age bracket? Like from your 20s through till, I don't know, if you're dating in your 80s, it's like, what's your living situation? What are things that you're interested in? You know what I mean? It's the same core things. It may be on different levels of that.
Yeah.
To your point of like, yeah, I mean, if you're 40, you're probably having a way different conversation, right? You're 20, you're like, where do you like to go eat cheese or whatever? Like, I don't know why I went to that.
That's a hot topic right now. I don't know why. But
Where do you get your cheese?
Where do you get your cheese from? What kind of cheese? A Gouda, cheddar? I've never had that conversation.
Yeah,
just
I don't know why my mind went to cheese, but
I'm not a cheese eater either. But
yeah, it's going to be a little bit
for
more
different
superficial.
reasons. It's for different reasons. So, for instance, if when you're in your 20s or 30s, you're thinking about, do you want to have kids? How many kids do you want? That's the conversation. And then when you're in your 40s or 50s, you're like, you still ask that same question. Do you still want kids? But not because you want to have any more, but most of the time it's because you're in a spot where you don't want to, you're done having kids. So you want to gauge it with the other person. Like, if you still want kids, I'm not the one for you.
So in your age bracket, would you say that question, that's part of your probably first date conversations every time, right? Do you want more kids?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a conversation. You know what else comes up a lot too? And I was talking to a friend of mine, his wife, and she's been married for 30 years, so she didn't understand this, and she was like taken aback. But first date conversations, they ask about whether or not you want to get married. That's out the gate. That's usually a first date conversation when you're in your 40s.
Yeah.
And she thought, like, that's ridiculous. Why would you be talking about that on your first date?
Right.
And I explained to her that, women and men, when they're in their 40s or whatever, they don't have a lot of time left. So for them, they're trying to find companionship, and like they want something long term. They don't want to fling anymore. They want something more substantial. So that's the way they bring it up. Ironically, they still bring it up in their 20s too.
That's what I say. I feel like I've seen on reality TV a lot of 20-year-old girls on first dates do that too.
Yeah. So maybe it's just universal. Maybe it has nothing to do with age, but that's what they tell me. Like, hey, I don't want to waste any more time.
Yeah.
I'm really looking for somebody that's serious about this. And
Well, I will say that I do remember what it was like to be in my 20s. And I remember feeling that, like, even in my 20s, I was like, well, I don't have that much more time left. You know what I mean? Like, so I can relate. Like, I understand what they're feeling. Cause looking back on it, obviously I was like, well, I was like 25. I had plenty of time. You know what I mean? Every year it's more bleak. Like, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes, I do.
so like, I don't think it's silly when even a 23-year-old, you know, maybe talks about marriage on a first date. Cause it's like, she feels like she's already running out of time.
Yeah, and again, I don't think it's unreasonable or in bad taste or anything, but it is difficult if you haven't thought about it in those terms. Again, we're on a first date.
Yeah.
You know, are there men out there that never want to get married again? Perhaps, you know, and maybe that's where the conversation is like, are you open to marriage again? Because that comes up a lot too. And it's just like, well, yeah, especially if you're talking to somebody that's been married once, twice, or three times, they usually will ask you, okay, what about marriage? Do you ever want to get married again?
How much play do you think a 20-year-old guy, hot guy, on the dating website would get if on his profile it said, I never want to get married?
I think if he looks good, he's still going to get a lot of play.
Yeah. But do you think that like any woman is looking at that, like cares about that from a 20-year-old, like, and he's hot, you know, like, do they think they really?
If they're old, it depends on the woman, right? Because there are some women, I think, and this is universal, it's not just women, I think men too, when they get out of a relationship, for some reason, they just feel like the sooner they get back out there, the sooner they can get over that other person, but it never works out. And if you're, let's say, so I'm 46 and I don't date 20-year-olds, but if I did, I know in the back of my mind, it's not going anywhere. Can't, because in the next 10, 20 years, it's going to make such a difference that it's just unreasonable to think that she's going to stick around for a 60-year-old dude, right? And she's in her 30s. That's just too unreasonable. That's too much to ask of anybody. So, yeah. So I think when you date somebody younger, depending on how young, you kind of already know it's not going to be anything, right? Even Hugh Hefner, he was like 80 or whatever, and he's had a 20-year-old girlfriend, but they were girlfriends. He didn't marry any of them.
Yeah, well, he was also really rich, so I mean.
He was. But that comes up a lot. Kids, family, they want to know about your career. They usually ask you about your career. Make sure, and some of the times they don't even ask, they'll just give you examples because previous relationships come up a lot. They just tend to do. And they kind of give you a signal, like without asking you what you do for a living, they would just tell you like, my previous boyfriend didn't have a job, you know, owed a bunch of money. His credit was bad. He didn't have a car. And so that's their way of telling you, like, if you are doing any of these things, they're bad. So they don't ask you how much money do you make or what's your job. But they do. It matters, obviously, because they're bringing it up.
I was just thinking, I've never been on a date where someone had asked me, like, do you ever want to get married or like, what's your...
Guys don't do that.
No, I'm just thinking of like my personal...
I've never asked a woman if she plans on getting married.
I'm just saying and thinking of the differences between the male and female part. Just, I don't know. It's interesting how that
I think, you know, from a dude's perspective, right? From an older guy, I think we want those same things too, to a certain point. We're just not going to come out the gate with it. We're just not, it just doesn't come up. But a lot of times because they open up that door, you know, we'll find, as soon as they open up that door, I'm like, okay, they want to get married, right? Like, but in their dating profiles, I will say that they usually do post that same thing that says, you know, I'm looking for something long-term, no hookups, no friends with benefits, no, you know, no hookups. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
So when
I was trying to figure out what the difference was between hookups and friends with benefits.
It's the same thing, except when you call a friend.
Yeah.
I guess you can hang out with one of them.
Not many of us have been.
But yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. In other words, what they really should say is not just looking for just a physical relationship. And that's really what it boils down. Because even friends with benefits, I mean, it's mostly physical.
Yeah.
Maybe they started out as friends and then it turned into something else, but yeah.
There's a lot of aspects about a first date that I do like, but the conversation part is, I hate to say, but it's a little bit annoying for me because it feels like I'm on a job interview, which I just hate that job interview feeling. And so like, I don't know. I mean, like the experience part is cool, but it's just like, I don't know, being grilled on the first date. Usually I will kind of sit back in observe more. So I just kind of let them talk. If they ask me about things, of course I'll answer. But that's the other thing too. I wouldn't talk about an ex on a first date
Better not. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, we
unless
just
they
shared
asked me, which in my experience, a lot of guys will ask me. I'm not asking them, tell me about your last relationship. I don't want to talk about that on a first date. Like, save that for later. Like, I don't need that. So I'm asking different things. But a lot of men have asked me to tell them what happened with my, it's like, that seems strange that a guy would ask that. It seems more like the woman would want to know.
They want to know just how bonkers you really are.
I guess, but
Because and I've done a lot of interviews too, and yes, I don't, even in those interviews, I don't ask direct questions like, that you usually ask for situational, open-ended, and you just let them talk. And so what that does is when you let them talk, they reveal themselves more and more and more. So yeah, you don't want to interview like, hey, I have a list of 10 questions. Have you ever killed anybody? Have you ever stabbed anybody? Have you ever been to prison? We don't start out like that. We usually just, like, hey.
what if we pivot it to you or like a politician? We're like, well, let me answer that by asking you this.
Or we could use that old trick of making your faults virtues.
Oh, right. I work
My
too
problem
hard.
is I love too much. I just loved way too much. I like to give back rubs and foot rubs. That's my problem.
Serve you breakfast in bed.
Yes, I do too much of that. Pamper you, treat you like a princess. That's my problem. I treat my women too well. I listen to them all the time. Maybe that's
Well, I mean, that makes me think of another point too of like people who will lie a lot on the first date.
Oh, yeah.
Unless you're just looking for a one night, where do you think that's going to get you long term? Because you're already lying about like, it's always like, I love skydiving and I love to hike. And it's all these things that are like so extreme. And it's like,
Yeah.
I just like to watch TV or walk around my neighborhood or whatever. But like, that's usually all lies.
Yeah. Well, guys in general always want to impress. They're always trying to flex, no matter what guy it is.
Yeah.
It could be even if he's like the best Dungeons and Dragons kind of guy. Like, and I'm not knocking these guys, but I'm just saying
Is that still around?
Yeah, it's a whole subculture. Yeah.
Where do they meet still?
Yeah. Heck yeah.
Like in basements or
Wherever they do, but
it's all online now.
It's actually so I used to watch a show, I still watch it, Billions, and these are millionaires, but they're also kind of nerds. They have their own thing. And it's like very sophisticated, it has to do with a lot of numbers. And I mean, it's a subculture.
Are you talking about Dungeons and Dragons still? Okay.
Yeah, it's Dungeons and Dragons.
So
it's on a much larger, higher scale.
Okay.
It's more sophisticated. It has to do with like points. And like it's a whole thing, man. It's a whole thing. But my point being is that they're even going to flex about that and be like, I'm the champion of this, blah 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 blah. We're always going to do that. It's even if especially like for me, I'm not fit. I have a dad bod, but I'm still going to flex on other things because I know I can't do the physique.
Yeah,
thing.
but you're not outright lying about like I love to fly airplanes or whatever.
No,
like just
but they're
it's
trying to
always the
impress.
sporty guy. It's the guy who's trying to seem very outdoorsy.
Right.
Those are the ones who are like, oh yeah, I kayak every weekend and all this like stuff. And it's like,
well, tip to the ladies: whenever you get certain things like that, you have to ask follow-up questions. You have to ask. So if they say
what
something
kind of boat?
Exactly. What kind of kayak do you use? What brand? Especially if you're an avid.
You ruin it for your fellows here.
Well, I'm just telling you, if you're an avid hiker, right, and because it matters what kind of boots you wear, like you're for real an avid hiker, you're gonna know the different socks, boots, what you do, like how you're supposed to navigate. So you ask them follow-up questions, and if they can't answer it, you know that they're full of crap.
How would you pivot from that, saying you're an avid this, and then they do ask follow-up questions? How do you weasel out of that?
Well, you'll find out.
I gotta go to the bathroom real quick.
Nikes. I use Nikes.
Be like, well, it's too sophisticated for you to understand, so I'm not even gonna try to explain. Maybe next time.
Yeah, but and that's why I like to be honest, because again, they will sometimes that does happen. So whenever let's say they were like, oh, I'm an avid hiker, I hike every day, I know all the trails, and I'd be like, the only thing I can add to that would be like, oh yeah, I've been to Hawaii and I've hiked there.
I've walked before.
But yeah, but it was not to your degree.
I hiked from my car
right.
to the table.
And what I'm trying to do there is still kind of build a connection, but not say like, oh yeah, like I do it too. Like I'm always out there, because no good will come of that.
So let them know you're interested in it, but that you don't do that currently. Like, oh, that's
Correct,
really cool.
right? Or I've done it before, but
Yeah.
not to the level that you are doing it right now. So then that lets them know that, like you do understand that world. You're not exactly that,
Right.
but it's like, oh yeah, I can do that. So here's another one that comes up. If they're dog or cat people, they'll usually say something like, well, I love dogs. So if you don't love dogs, or I love cats. And if you're allergic to cats, it's not going to work out. So again, it wouldn't do me any good. And I've heard stories from women. They're like, yeah, I dated this one guy and I told him about my cats. And then he came over one day and he was like all sneezing and he was like, oh, I'm allergic to cats. And she's like, I told you I had cats.
Yeah, but why would a dude be like...
Because dudes are trying to get in where they fit in.
That's
so
what I'm
to speak.
saying. No guy is going to be like, oh, I'm allergic. I'll see you later.
I would. If
she was really cute.
It doesn't matter. She has cats. What am I gonna do?
But she's really cute.
I mean, don't get me wrong. She's cute, but like to your end, what's the end game? If I'm trying to play games, sure.
We all know what a guy's end game is.
Well, we want companionship too. We want a nice young lady, and we want to walk in the park. We want all that stuff too, but we want the dirty stuff too. And then we could do all that other stuff after that or before. But yeah, we want. There's not a lot of differences between what men and women want exactly. It's only when you get into the particulars of like certain actions and things like that. I think universally people want to be with a partner, a companion, as I like to put it. I think they want shared interest. I think they want to be understood. I think all of that is universal.
Yeah.
Obviously, even the intimacy. For women, maybe it's a little bit different where they want more of an emotional connection. And for men, they want that too. But obviously, they want the physical one too. And now what I'm finding out now is that women want the physical just as much as the guy. It took me a while because, again, when I was growing up, it wasn't as overt as it is now.
Yeah.
Like now, women speak about their sexuality way more openly than they did when I was growing up, which is a good thing because, again, it helps me learn because I was just under the impression that when I was growing up, I was under the impression that women didn't like sex. They just did it for men.
I think that from what I remember researching, it was more of like during those times, it was meant to be shameful if a woman enjoyed that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. We were all conditioned to not talk about it. The female orgasm was not up until recently. Like anybody cared.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why it's so enlightening to me. And even now on first dates, I've been on first dates where they initiate the sex talk. And that's an interesting.
Yeah, that's on my list of things to ask you. I was going to say, like, do you think that you or guys have a limit on how dirty you can be in those types of first date sexual conversations? Is it like the sky's the limit? You don't care?
So I've been, it depends on the woman. Let me just put it that way. So I'm very, I don't bring it up unless they bring it up first. That's my rule of thumb when it comes to.
That's a good rule.
Yeah, when it comes to love making or knocking boots, let's just call it knocking boots. So when it comes to that, I just don't bring it up unless they bring it up. Yeah. Now, I have been on first dates where it gets brought up by the woman, and she goes way too in depth about certain things. Like she just goes all out.
Do you like that, or does it make you uncomfortable?
It's not that it makes me uncomfortable, but I'm also thinking to myself, geez, what am I going to do here? like if she's that way and this is our first date, like, I don't know. A lot of
people probably know these things about her. If she's saying it that easily.
Well, it does kind of make me think, let's put it this way, because guys, and maybe it's just me, I'm an overthinker, right? So if we're having a conversation and the lady I'm with is talking about long-term and doing nice things and, whatever, very pleasant walks in the park, hiking, activities, then I'm like, okay, in my mind, I'm thinking if this turns into anything, I'm going to have to be doing those things too, whatever those things are. But then when they go straight to the sex talk, I'm kind of thinking to myself, okay, this could be fun because obviously she's into all that, but long-term, I don't know. You know what I mean? Because she's doing this with me. How many other guys has she been doing?
It's a little telling.
You can't help it, right? And the same women do the same thing, right? So if a guy's trying to charm you and do all these other things, you're probably thinking in the back of your mind, like, how many ladies has he done this to, right? Like, is he putting on that charm a little too? And I get that too. And so they're always like, oh, you do this a lot. And I'm like, no, I don't. But,
I saw that on Sex and the City one time. Carrie was dating this rich guy, and the next morning he had made her pancakes, and
Yeah.
she's telling her girlfriends, like bragging about it. And
Yeah.
they're like, come on, like, you think you're the first girl he made pancakes for? It's like, yeah, every guy has his little spiel, his little game that he, whatever. You're just reusing it. It's just recycling
Well,
over there.
I wouldn't say recycle, but yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. So when they go straight to that, sometimes though, and I will say this is it's also flattering. Because if they're already talking about that on your
They
first,
find you attractive.
They do, right? So that there has to be that. Because if they didn't, why would they be talking to me about sex?
So then you're just all smiley like I was earlier.
Well, that's
and
what I'm
just
saying.
Like, yay, this is a great date.
Again, this is a tip for guys. This is just a tip for guys. When it's going well, be quiet.
Yeah.
Don't talk or talk as little as you possibly can.
You will talk your way out of it.
Yes, you will talk your way out of it. So don't talk your way out of it. Play it cool. Just keep going with the flow, and then things will work out for you.
Ask
I promise.
questions.
Yeah, because there's times when, and this happens not even if it's the sex talk, but things are going well, and you can tell. Let's say I say something and it puts them off for whatever reason. You can tell in their face almost immediately, like, "Oops, she didn't like that."
Yeah.
She winced, or she made a face, or like she just smelled something bad. You're like, oh, and you can't help those, right? These are micro expressions or just their expressions.
Yeah.
There's no way you can hide them. And in person, if it's over the phone, you can't tell. But in person, as soon as that should register in your mind, stop talking about that.
Yeah.
And I did that one time. I was talking to one lady, and I forgot we were talking about something, and a tire came out, and I was like, oh yeah, I like to wear a Hawaiian shirt and jeans, blah, blah. Oh, you know what it was? Anyways, it was that, but I mentioned that I was wearing a Hawaiian shirt, and she was like, oh man, you were doing so good. But then once you said that just messed me up. And I was like, dang it. I was like, okay, shut up, Jose, no more talking. And then I was just like, no, I don't wear them all the time.
So it's not just me that has a problem with these Hawaiian shirts.
No, it's not. But that's the whole point. If it's gonna kill the mood, stop talking about it. If you're talking about fishing and you're talking about gutting a fish and you can see that she's just not interested and you killed the mood, move on to something else.
Right. So do you have any topics that you refuse to talk about during a first date? Like I know a big one is religion and politics. So like some people will tell you right off the bat, like kind of when you sit down, you order a drink, maybe they're like, hey, just so you know, I'm not talking about this or this. Do you have it, or you're just like open wherever the conversation is going to go?
Me personally, I like to just stay away from it if at all possible.
Yeah.
I don't bring it up in conversations. Most women don't bring it up either.
Yeah.
Most. Now, if they're really passionate about it, they might,
Yeah, I've been on dates where guys will like go on a rant about like politics or something, and I'm just sitting there. I'm like,
yeah, because it divides people, and everybody has their opinions one way or the other, and if you're not aligned to those beliefs or those whatever, it can just derail.
But what about the some people who are really against, let's say religion is a big deal for you and you're like, I have to be with a Christian or whatever. Do you think that even that should come out of at least asking during a first date? Or is it still kind of a touchy subject?
If it's really that important to you, then I believe you should bring it up.
Yeah.
Now, here's my thought on that, right? You're going to pay a cost no matter which way it goes.
Right.
So you're going to pay a cost for talking about it, and you're going to pay a cost for not talking about it. So you don't get to walk out of this unscathed, right? Because if it's important to you and you don't talk about it, and then you get more and more emotionally invested with this person, then you find out that your viewpoints on religion don't match. Now you got a problem.
Yeah.
Because you like them as a person, but their ideas or whatever, or their views on certain topics that are important to you is not. So it really starts out with your value system, whatever your value system is. And if that is high on your value, then you should bring it up and at least gauge where that other person is.
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of people probably have their same go-to questions about like family and stuff like that, because it is extremely important to a lot of people. So I'm really big on my family. So if I was with someone and they're like, yeah, I hate family and I never want to ever, it would be a little bit of a red flag to me because it is important to me. So,
it's interesting in the last one, when we were talking about, we watched the Love is Blind.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody had made a comment on there about the fact that, the dating profiles only really show you what they want you to see,
Mm-hmm.
right? And he's absolutely right. You don't put all your crazy out there.
Right.
You give it a little bit of time. But that said, dating is the same way. Now, the only caveat to that, or the only difference between what they put on a dating app and a first date conversation, is that sometimes, especially if you're so passionate about it, you can't hide it.
Yeah.
It's gonna come out.
Yeah.
And that's why, for me, I'm interested in to know that person to see
Mm-hmm.
if we would click. So I ask a lot of open-ended questions, and then if that comes up, I'll give her my views on whatever it is that she asks me. If she says, "Hey, what are your views on politics? What are your views on religion?" I'll give a very brief description, and then we move on to whatever the next topic is. But yeah, there's some biggies out there, and yeah,
Yeah.
marriage is another one. Again, they're like, "I'm really big on marriage. I want to get married. I don't want to rush into things." It's like, okay, cool. Like, thanks for letting me know.
Yeah. I actually was, in researching this, found this article online that I thought was kind of interesting that we can talk about. This is it's a website called joinonelove.org. And it was the top 10 questions you would ask on a first date. So I kind of wanted to go through these to
Let's do
see
it.
how you feel about it,
Let's
or
do it.
maybe your experiences with it. But I thought these were really interesting. I think this is a really good article for someone who's not really sure what to say or what would be appropriate. But the first one is what makes you unique, which I thought was kind of cool. Rather than saying like, it's basically like, instead of saying like, what are your hobbies or whatever, I feel like this is kind of the same question, but just a little bit more ominous. You know what I mean?
Sort of.
Anything could fall
that's
under.
a tough question. I don't know. I've never been asked that before.
Oh, me neither.
Wow, what makes you unique?
It would be hard to answer, but it's kind of this, it feels like kind of an umbrella question. You know what I mean?
It's a, I don't know. It's
Because really,
even right now, it's messing with me.
Okay, this is what I mean by it being an umbrella.
Like, have long hair?
It depends on what you think is unique. So that could go into, maybe you think of something that involves your family, or maybe your mind will go to something that you've done in your past, or maybe your mind will go to, one of your hobbies. It could go all different ways. It's how you, the receiver, is interpreting that.
Yeah, I suppose so. What I will say is, I get a lot of situations like that where they say certain things, and I think that they believe that they're unique, but it's like, I've heard this before.
Like, give me an example of like it's an average thing.
Yeah. So one of the things that comes up a lot is I hear women say to me, "Well, I don't need a man. I don't need you to take care of me. I don't need you. I think I'm unique in that way, or I'm not like every other girl. I can take care of myself." And it's like, all of them have told me the same thing. Like, so like, I'm like, okay, but if you think that if that stands out, it really doesn't, right? But I'm not going to tell them that. I'm trying to get this gig. But I would kind of listen to them, like, okay, or like little things like that are more common than they think, or they'll say something like, "Oh, I don't like to go out. I like to just stay in and relax and watch a movie. And I'm not like everybody else. I'm like, I hear that a lot too." So that's what I'm saying. It's not unique, but I guess for them, maybe they feel, because maybe they're around people that don't do that.
What if it's something really weird that you don't want to hear?
Like what?
I don't know. Like, I have web feet or something.
That would be unique.
I mean, just
that
saying,
would be, I would be like,
what if they asked you,
what?
Or what if you asked and they said something that was like that?
You know what I would like to ask? I wouldn't say that unique. I would ask, now the next time I go on a date, I'm going to ask this, like, if you have a unique talent, because that would be interesting. Like a unique talent. Maybe they're double jointed and
but
not
what if
everybody's
you're putting them on
double-jointed.
display? Like, I don't have that. So like, I would be.
You do have a talent.
What?
You want me to put them out here?
No, but
Okay.
there's nothing. I don't have any party. What do they call
But
it?
you have talent. You have a lot of talent. Don't make me go into it right now.
I'm just okay. We'll talk about that off air. But like, I'm just saying, I don't know what I would say.
Okay, well, yeah,
Or what if that person doesn't feel they have a unique talent? Isn't that kind of putting them on the spot? I guess the unique question is the same
well, like,
thing.
but here's the thing: it doesn't need to be like extraordinary or like you have to be on America's Got Talent or anything like that. It could be like maybe they can remember useless facts. It's like, hey, I don't know why, but I've always been able to remember useless facts, or I'm big on pop culture. Like, do you know this? Do you know that? Maybe they're movie buffs. Maybe.
Mm. They know every word to the Clueless movie like
Yeah,
I do.
maybe exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's a talent.
Is
Not
that a
everybody can
talent that
do
I could
that.
tell people?
It's a talent. Yes, you can. Or that unique part. Maybe, and again, I don't think it's that unique, but again, just something to strike up the conversation. It doesn't have to be extraordinary. It just needs to be slightly different. Because let's say they like and love Rob Zombie, like they can quote all their cause songs or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That might be unique, right? If nothing would indicate that there would be a Rob Zombie fan.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, I
okay,
guess that kind of bleeds into number 2, which is what are some random fun facts about you?
yeah,
So I guess that'd be kind of like what to your point, what you're talking about.
yeah. I've had a few myself. I mean, I can list them off, but I don't want to. I've won a car. Let's put it that way. That's a unique thing.
Is it
That's
something you would say on a first date?
yeah,
Is that your first
yeah.
material?
That's never been asked of me either, by the way. So yeah, like some of these questions are really great, and I'm gonna have to use some of them. I'm gonna have to bite your style here.
Okay. Number 3, this one got a little bit deep. It says, what's something you want to learn or wish you were better at?
Yeah.
Like it's asking because it has a little thing underneath it. It's like, what are your hopes and dreams, basically?
Yeah. So that one does come up. It's not worded that way, but I do
Right.
sometimes will say something like, "Where do you see yourself in 2 years from
An
now?"
interview
Or
question.
kind of, sort of. I just want to see what their goals are.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't mean that they're going to achieve them, but it lets me know what sort of ambition they have.
But I would hate to be asked that during a first date. It feels
Really?
so interviewy. It's like, I'm not here to talk about my hopes and dreams and things that I may be insecure about or whatever. Like, first date to me, it just feels like it should be way more fun. Maybe I know it's different depending on what age you are and what
Yeah.
you're looking for, but like the first date, it shouldn't be so serious. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I'm saying. In first dates, it's not. That question's going to come up organically. It's not going to come up like, okay, here's my next question. Like
I'm sure some
it's
people.
not. I'll give you an instance. The way it works is like, let's say I was talking about me, and let's say I was talking about my career, and then I said, yeah, like, I've moved up, or I got promoted, or I switched jobs, I switched careers. What about you? Do you like what you do? Do you plan on staying there? Like, what are you thinking? And then if they say, yeah, absolutely, I love it, I want to stay here, I never want to move. Like, okay, cool. But I'm not going to say like, where do you see yourself 2 years from now? It's not going to be exactly worded that way.
Yeah.
These questions, I think they're guides, but you don't ask them that way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. The next one could be a little bit more playful. Number 4 is, would you rather? I mean, you could go innocent. You could go, if you get in that vibe, it's a little dirty, maybe.
it's a fun game. Anyways, even if it's a clean game.
Yeah, but like, I mean, I'm trying to think of something innocent that would tell you something about them. Like maybe you could say, for your dream date, would you rather be outdoors or inside somewhere or whatever? You can kind of tell from
that's
that.
very flirty. I was thinking of something just weird.
Oh, I just mean like a question that where you could learn kind of if they're more introverted, extrovert. Like that seems like you would kind of get that vibe from certain questions. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I mean, the point of all of these, right, is you want to get to know them a little bit better,
Yeah.
where they stand, what they do. And some of them, especially if they've never heard them before, it forces them, because they're either going to have to make it up on the fly, which you'll be able to detect almost immediately, or they'll give you a genuine response, which is what you're looking for. And then you
Yeah.
can gauge whether or not, you want to hang out with them anymore.
Do you ever like ask people like that, like you were saying earlier, like where do you see yourself in 2 years? Or like, do you ever meet people where they have no ambitions? They're like, I don't know, I don't do anything, I don't go anywhere. Like,
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, it's very frustrating because you can't talk to them. Like the conversation goes dead really, really fast if they have nothing to bring to it. Now, don't get me wrong; they might be great to hang out with, but if you're having a first date conversation, or even later on, if you plan on having more conversations with that person, what are you going to do if they don't want to talk? Maybe that's maybe neither one of you want to talk, and that's a great yeah, it's fantastic too. But yeah, me in general, I do like to talk about certain things. Maybe not everything, but yeah, I want to talk. I will say this. This is because we were talking about earlier about previous relationships. Typically, we ask that question only because we want to see what kind of, like what kind of, if you've had any trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, for instance, one of the things that I'll ask a lady, I just started doing it when they talk about, like, let's say they got divorced. And they're
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, I was married for 10 years. Then we got divorced. Then it was hard. And, we had to do this and that, go to court, kids, blah, blah. And then my follow up question to that is, what did you learn about yourself? Because that's an interesting thing.
Dang, you're getting that deep on a first date.
I'm trying to. I ain't here to play games. I ain't here to play games.
That's too deep, bro.
No, I'm not here to play games. Well, you keep it light. That's the other thing. That's the other art of conversation is you go from light conversation to deep conversation to light conversation to deep.
Like we do on this show, you mean?
And if you can do that, in a the correct way, you get more out of that date.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether or not there was a love connection, you feel at least that you connected with that person because you got a little bit of both. But you're right. If it's too deep, too much, like, yeah. But that's what I'm saying. When you ask about a previous relationship, let's say they were to say, oh, yeah, we broke up and that was it. This was amicable. It just didn't work out.
Yeah.
All right, cool. But if they said that they've gone through a lot, right? I'm curious to find out, what did you learn about yourself during that whole thing, right? Did you learn that you were stronger? Did you learn that you really did need somebody? Did you learn that you made a mistake, maybe? Did you learn that you're better off without them? Like, there's so many that you're stronger than what you really are. Like, that's the reason why, like, you just want to know about that person. And you also want to know, not for nothing, if we're talking about the end game is marriage, right? You want to pick a partner that is not fickle.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because if they're fickle, then, like, when the things get tough, and they will, like, there's no way around it. Life is going to be tough. It's going to throw things at you that you're unexpected. You want a partner that's going to stand by your side, that has the fortitude to be like, hey, I'm not going anywhere. It's tough, but I'm still here.
And you can weed out a lot of those people on the first date.
You can. Yes, you can. Believe it or not. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, yeah, that's one of the ones.
This next one, I wouldn't like this to be asked of me either. It's, know any good jokes? I would feel so awkward. I don't have a joke at the ready. And even if I did, it would be so lame. Like, I don't really agree with this question.
You know what I did? I heard a pickup line that's semi-jokey-ish.
Okay.
Right? So, and I haven't tried it out yet, but one of these days I'm going to try it out because I heard it and I was like, oh, this is an awesome one. But you're out on a date, right? Or let's say you're talking to a lady or whatever, and you ask her, you say, hey, feel this. And you like your blazer or your shirt, and then they'll feel it. And then you ask them, you know what it's made of? And then they're going to be like, what? And then you say, boyfriend material. I like that. You didn't like that? Maybe it was the setup that I lost you because you're just not getting that at all. Wow. Should I not try that one out?
I personally don't like pickup lines. Like, I don't like.
Wow, that one fell flat.
Sorry.
Wow.
It just seems really corny rather than just being genuine. I don't know.
It's
Maybe
just a
I'm
way to
wrong.
break the ice.
I know,
it's just
but
a way to break the ice.
I had that one told me too. What was it? It was like, are polar bears heavy or something? Or something. He was like, I'm just trying to break the ice. And I'm like, really? You're like, no. Stop
Okay,
it.
so, but that's what I'm saying. It's hard for guys. It's hard for guys to approach women and like, what do you say? And it's easy for you guys to say, oh, just say hi. But no, that's not going to work. I'm telling you.
What if he's
that
like,
doesn't
hi?
work. Yeah. All up in your face. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish you could have seen her face. No, but I mean, it's a.
What if they're like Night at the Roxbury type? Like,
that happens too. But the whole point of those is just to be cute and flirty and trying to break the ice. Because otherwise, like you said, it's too like, hi, my name's Jeff. What's your name? You know what I mean? Like, do you prefer that?
you Jeffrey
over?
Dahmer right now? Like,
But that's what I'm saying. Would you prefer that versus,
I get it. I'm just saying, like, it feels a little unnecessary. It's really hard. I am assuming it's very hard because every woman is going to be different. She's not going to receive it the same. So, and you don't know,
Yeah.
you're walking up to her about to put everything out there and you don't know what type of girl she is.
So let me just give you a little tip. One thing that I've seen that women respond to quite well is if you can make them laugh.
Yeah.
If you can make a woman laugh, I'm telling you, you're winning the battle
Yeah.
at that point.
I agree.
So the whole approaching it that way, if you can get a smile out of her, if I got the reaction that you gave me, yes, I know I'm done. I'm like, she does not have a sense of humor, or at least that's not her sense of humor, which means I got to get the heck out of here because this ain't gonna work. I would.
I do have a sense of humor.
You do.
How dare
you? That's what I'm saying. Like, again, it's if you're out and about or even on a date or whatever, you're really just trying to be funny. You're trying to break the ice. Again, you don't want to go too deep, but at the same time, you got to be humorous because they expect that too. So on the dating apps, they will tell you exactly what they're looking for.
Yeah.
One of them is humor.
I'm not saying I would have looked at the guy like I looked at you just now. I probably would have been nicer, but yeah, here's the next one. And I really like this question.
All right.
Number 6 is, what's something that bugs you?
Something that bugs me.
Yeah, like
a pet peeve?
Yeah, something that annoys you. I think it's a really good question to ask.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Rather than saying, I don't know, like maybe what's your deal breakers or something, because I feel like when that question is asked, like what bugs you, most people are going to go to what bothered them about their ex, right? So it's like, I mean, that's how I would take the question. So if I like was with someone like super messy and then, I got out of that relationship and I'm like, well, I really don't like untidy people. Like, well, if I'm saying that and I'm being honest, then you know that I'm a tidy person and that kind of stuff is important to me.
Well, at least you don't like untidy people. That's all I'm getting out of that. But if you're not tidy, so let me ask you that. Then what happens if you say, well, I'm not a tidy person? Is that a wrap?
No, not for me. I'm just saying.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So it's hard, right? Because that one I think is a trick question. I really do, because that one's tough.
You're trusting this onelove.org or whatever.
No, that one's a tricky one because that one can get you. Well, I'm not gonna say it could get you in trouble, but it could. It could possibly cause a misunderstanding, right? Because you're looking at me like what? I don't know. Like let's say somebody asked me that question and they're like, well, like what bugs you? And I'm like, oh, alcoholics or something like that. People that drink too much. And then we're sitting there having a drink and that's your third drink. She's going to be like, oh, what does he like? Like, and it doesn't mean that I don't like enjoying a drink, but maybe I just don't like alcoholics, right? Because like you said, the previous boyfriend or the previous girlfriend could have been abusive. And unfortunately, now you've got.
Yeah, but you're saying that 3 drinks in.
Well, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. That's why that one's a tricky one because let's say I say like eating with your mouth open because that does kind of bug me. But now, what if she's sitting across from me? She's eating with her mouth open.
Well, I would think that you would be smart enough to know that you wouldn't say the thing that they're doing.
Let's say we're having drinks and then like. But before we go to dinner, so
that girl better eat with her mouth closed.
Well, that's what
she
I'm saying.
knows that this guy doesn't like it, so I need to be on top game.
Or even at that, let's say you're a sports fan and she's a Boston's fan and you're a Yankees fan, and I'm like, I really hate Boston fans. The whole town just sucks. They're gonna be like, what? And all of a sudden now, it's not gonna be a fun date.
Yeah,
because it's so. It divides people.
It feels like I get some things out of the way. But number 7, I don't know what I would say to this one. What's the most embarrassing thing you can remember that's happened to you?
Yeah, we're not answering that question. What's the next question, young lady? Because that one.
What if somebody asked you that? Would you?
What if they did?
I'd be like, nothing.
I'm trying to think because I don't get embarrassed too much, or at least if I do get embarrassed, it's usually like my behavior or my reaction to something. But it's not like I fell down. Like I don't get I would care less. I would be more upset that I fell down and
Yeah, I don't think that's super embarrassing.
But when I was little, obviously it would have been. I was like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. I fell and tripped in front of everybody.
I'm
And I
just trying
was
to
like,
figure out like what people would answer. Like, let's say you had something that was really embarrassing. Would you admit it? And
now it could be
then
cute though.
okay, but I'm thinking of something not cute.
Yeah, because I could tell you, like, let's say, and this never happened, but I've seen other people do it, where you're on a Zoom call, and you forgot that your camera was on, and let's say you take off a piece of clothing, and everybody's like, oh, like let's say you have a muscle shirt underneath, and you take off your shirt,
Sports vest.
yeah, sports vest under there, and you take it off, you take off your regular shirt, and you forgot that your camera was on. You were like, oh crap, everybody just saw that, or sometimes I saw this one. And he was talking and he forgot to blur it in the background. And his wife walked by and she was like barely dressed. Yeah. So not embarrassing to him, but it was embarrassing in general. So, yeah. So that's why you blur the
What
background.
if that guy was on the date and he said, yeah, my wife came in behind me and he like totally told on himself?
That's how you catch him right there, man. That's how you catch him.
Yeah. Number 8 is, what's your favorite place on Earth? Earth being the key word, I guess. If they said, yes, I've traveled to other planets, then maybe you should run away. But I think this is a good question too.
Never should have told you that.
Depending on how you take it. Because like, let's say that your family is really important. And I could say like, well, I love being at my mother's home. Because I do love being at my mother's home. Like it feels good. So, oh my God. Anyways.
Oh, look at her. She loves her mama. Oh, that's so sweet. That's so sweet. I can tell you, I probably couldn't get away with that because girls would be like, you want to go to your mom's house? Ugh, what a loser.
But it'd probably tell you too also something that's like super important to them. It, like I said, it depends on where your mind is going to go, how it's going to interpret this question. But like, do you want to divulge?
Hawaii. That would be my answer. Hawaii. Yeah. I love Hawaii. It doesn't matter what island. All of them. I love them all. I love.
So,
that
do you
place.
think that maybe the woman receiving that, if that's your answer, they'd probably assume you're kind of a laid back kind of guy.
Yeah.
If you like something that,
if that's what they're, if that was the purpose of that question, sure.
Well, I'm saying you could take a lot of these really all types of ways, but that's, if you were to tell me Hawaii, I would interpret that as like, oh, he's probably a really laid back guy. He likes to go and relax rather than being like, if you're like, I love Manhattan. It's like, okay, well, if you love Manhattan, I
like to say bruh instead of bro. Because that's what they say. What up, bruh? BRUH, bruh.
But
and hang loose. But yeah, man, like it's Hawaii.
I'm just saying that's what I would interpret. Like if a guy said that.
If you said your mama's house, I would have been like, oh, she loves her mama. That's a better answer than mine, Hawaii.
Well, that kind of bleeds into number 9 is, who is the special person in your life or the special people in your life? So again, if you're a family person.
I get in trouble for that one. Because I say Robbie, and they're like, what? It's another girl? Oh, and that just starts up.
You could just say your friends.
Whole other thing. Trust me. Sometimes it's not easy being your friend. It's worth it, for sure. But it is not easy being your friend.
Ladies, don't hold it against Jose.
Dude,
he's a good guy.
I'm telling you, I get so much grief for being your friend. I really, really do. I really, really, really do.
I'm sorry that I messed it up for you, bruh.
Like bruh, yeah. Like I said, it's not easy, but it's worth it. But yeah, I mean, and I get it, right? Because women having a female friend, right? So if you're dating a dude or whatever, having a female friend that's very concerning, right? And they're usually like, okay, what's that all about? And no matter what I try to tell them, and it's all the truth, they never listen. They get that tunnel vision, and it's like, But anyways,
I got hearts in their eyes for you, Jose. They can't help it.
I mean, I don't know why I don't know why it's a problem. I mean, I've had girlfriends who were still friends with their exes. Again, my expectation was that relationship is over, other than they're just amicable to one another. But, I guess you never know. This is my whole stance on cheating, and I'll just leave it at this. if somebody's going to do that, they're going to do it. It doesn't matter if they have female friends or male friends. None of that matters. So I'll just put that out there.
Yeah,
But
Jose is speaking to all the ladies out
I
there.
mean, but I get it. There's a lot of men out there that behave badly, and if you get burned by one of them, of course, like you're going to be very guarded going forward. But anyways, yeah,
Yeah. Well, the last one we have here is, what's something you're proud of?
nothing.
I would say the majority of parents would probably say that. Like I'm proud of the parent that I am. I love my kids. You know what I mean? I feel like that's probably for that age bracket, the probably typical go-to.
Yeah, I guess.
What would you say?
I don't know. I don't really have a lot of pride and stuff. Don't get me wrong. Like there's a certain amount of pride that I take in the things that I do, but I'm not a very braggadocious person in general.
Well, I don't think it's about being like that. I just think that, I don't know, it could be, from what I know about you, friendships are really important to you. So it could even be something like, I'm proud of the friend that I am to the people I love.
I could probably answer what I'm not proud of on myself.
That wasn't a question on here.
That I could probably answer a lot better because I would have like a laundry list, but I don't know.
I did have a guy one time ask me on a date what was my biggest regret. And again, it's the same thing. It's like, why are you trying to go so dark and deep? Like, bruh, it's the first date. Like, why would I tell you? Even if, like, no.
But you'd be surprised how many times a person will answer that. Because if it's, and this is what for me, whenever I get in a conversation with people, right, it reveals what is truly bothering them or what they truly need to work on, as opposed to what they want to tell me, right? Because they want to present themselves a certain way. And fair enough, I understand that. But once you start talking about something, you can't help it.
Yeah.
If it's really bothering you, you only need to barely scratch the surface and it's just going to ooze out.
It's just like when you're trying to hold back crying and someone says, "Are you okay?" That's like, that's the key to the floodgates. And I immediately start just like, don't ask me anything and I'll be fine.
I mean, that's
barely holding it in.
That's what it boils down to. But like, yeah, regrets, you'd be surprised. I've heard a lot of first date conversations that have just gone off the rails.
What do you think about this article, the questions they brought up? I liked a lot of them. I thought they were good.
Yeah, I mean, I liked them. Like I said, I wouldn't phrase them that way.
Yeah.
I have my own unique way of asking certain questions, but yeah, I think they're pretty good. I think it depends on what you're trying to get to.
That's
For me,
true.
I ask a lot about previous relationships, or not a lot. Let me rephrase that. I'll usually ask them, when was your last, relationship? Because it does matter. If they just got out of it, like a week ago they broke up, I don't know.
Is anybody really telling the truth though?
I mean,
I feel like most people, if it was a week ago, they would lie and be like, "Oh, it was like a month ago."
So here's my stance on lying, because women lie too, right? But
Yeah.
I will say this. For me, I will give you the benefit of the doubt unless you do or say something that makes me think otherwise. Because I can't, it's a fine line between skepticism and a trust, right? Because you don't know this person. You don't know if they're lying. You don't know if they're telling the truth, but there is a possibility that can turn into something. So you can't start out questioning. And I've done that before too, where no matter what I tell them, they don't believe it. Which is, again, let's say if I were to ask a woman, "Hey, when was your last relationship?" And she was like, "Oh yeah, we broke up, 2 weeks ago." I was like, "Oh, if you don't mind me asking, what happened?" "Oh, well, he cheated on me." So right off the bat, and so whenever she's asking me a question and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I've done this, I've done that," and it's like, or if I tell them I take care of my kids and I do all this, they look at me with a very skeptical mind, like, he's just saying that. And then it's like, okay, you're not trusting me. I get it. But when you continue doing that, like over time, I don't know what to do. Because if you don't trust me, you really don't have any business being with me.
Well, now you're talking about being punished for previous relationships. That's a whole other episode.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. It bleeds over.
Yeah.
If you don't have time to process that, right? Because it matters. Now, if they said I haven't dated and we broke up 6 months ago, that's been some time. Now, you might ask what you've been doing in between that time, right? Like if they've been going out partying ever since then, then they probably haven't processed it. But even me, I like to take a little bit of time after a breakup just to make sure, like I don't take any of that other stuff into the new one.
Well,
So,
I've said it before. I don't think the time thing has any factor in that. I think that everyone's going to process it at their own speed. And who's to say? Because in 6 months doesn't mean that you're over it.
no, that's true. That's why when you ask, it depends on what
I
their
know, but if,
response is.
I mean, I'm saying like, even if someone says, yeah, I've been single for 6 months, that doesn't mean that they've processed anything. That's not like a green light. That's not like, okay, all clear, we're good.
Right.
You don't know.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. It's not a complete. But if it's the last relationship you were in and it's been 2 weeks and now you're dating me, sorry, you should stop for a second and think about what's about to happen. Especially if that relationship that you were in before was like a year old, and you're telling me that in a week or two, you're right. Everybody's different. I've never seen anybody get over another person within a week or two. I just
Well, if it was a
haven't.
woman and she was, like we talked about before, you know how we're getting ready to leave and we're already processing it way before the
Yeah,
end.
yeah. But then there's always that thing right after the breakup that you just start thinking about everything. Because now you're starting
Those
to.
nights suck.
I'm telling you, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So, regardless, you're right, a week or two, but I would say that I would be more comfortable with the possibility of something turning into long term if when we're dating it's been a while. And then again, if I ask the question and she just kind of tells me in passing like what happened, great. But if she really gets into it and starts going into details and like again, it's traumatic, so I'm not judging, but I do have to question whether or not she is ready to possibly start another, because that's what we're here for, right?
Yeah.
Unless she just wants to have fun, because honestly, that happens too. If they've just gotten out of a relationship a week or two, typically, in my experience, and I'm just gonna say in my experience, it's gonna be hot and heavy. It's gonna be a fling, and then it's gonna burn itself out.
Yeah.
That's just been my experience. It just burns itself out really, really fast because you get that connection with another person, but then you're still gonna have the downtime, and then you start thinking about it, and maybe this happens a lot. They end up going back to their boyfriends. Happens all the. But again, I'm just going based on me. I follow them on Facebook, and I'm like, they broke up 2 weeks ago, and then after we had our little fling for whatever it was, a month, and then like within a week or two, they're back with that same dude. And
Hide
you
your
see-
profiles, ladies.
I'm telling you, because they're on Facebook taking selfies together, and I'm like, wow, you were just with me like a week ago. Does he know?
Yeah.
But obviously he doesn't, and maybe they need that. I don't know. It's a weird.
Well, I think that people are divided on what kind of questions or first date conversations. Like I said before, I kind of like to keep it a little bit light, find out some core things about their family and their career and things like that. But I mean, I just want to have fun the first one. Let's see if we can kick it.
You kick it. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm all about fun. I will say this: women, at least in my experience, have been the ones that initiate the deep conversations first.
I agree.
They start out,
But
going
not
straight
all
for the
women
gut.
pointing over here want to
Right.
do that. But
Right. I know. I would appreciate that. I like to have fun as much as the next person.
Yeah.
And I've had my fair share of whatever, but I still think I'm still pretty well rounded.
Yeah.
I'll put it this way: if I didn't think I was ready to date, I wouldn't be out there dating.
Yeah.
So
I gotcha. Well, it was good to see you. And if anybody out there has maybe a first date question that's their go-to, let us know. Here's the thing, 214@gmail.com.
as long as they're appropriate, right? They can't be like, does the carpet match the drapes
Oh,
or
my
whatever?
Lord. Yeah, not
Because
those.
that would be, we should do one on inappropriate questions.
Or if you got a horrible pickup line, horrible that it's
No,
funny.
because that would feel so flat. I did.
No, I just want to hear what other people have used. If you have a go-to cheesy pickup line, let
Yeah,
us know.
absolutely. But
It's good to see you.
Yeah, good conversation. And till next time, I guess.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.